gonna make the tier list maker, but then Thomas did this video too. So like tier list maker already made. Big hype. S, A, B, C, and F. There is no D's in Achilles tier list. Ace, our main rider, Kamen Rider Geats himself. Actual S tier, honestly. Like not memeing or anything. Actual S tier in the fact that he starts out as this protagonist that you're like, man, he knows everything. Kind of in the Tendo way. I've seen a lot of people compare Ace and Tendo, but the difference is that Tendo from Kabuto never really gets beaten down or like second guesses himself, and Ace does do that. Gets beaten down, learns new things, gets caught off guard, and adapts to that, and then comes out on top, which I love. Ace, absolute S tier rider. One of my favorite main riders that we've gotten. Next up is Mary, who was like friends with Keiwa at the beginning and then turned out to be like a weird gambler dick. Honestly, I like him, his story. Like I'm gonna put him in B, not because he's like this amazing character or anything. I just think he's a really good character to show like, hey, it's not just good and bad. Also, people can lie to you. Like, everyone's in this for themselves. I think that's really cool. Hey, I'm friends with you, psych, I'm a dick. And like it was a good lesson for Keiwa to learn. Because he obviously didn't know it with he didn't learn it with Ace. Who is this? This is F tier. I don't know her. Grandpa dude, cool. And he traded places with Keiwa to be a rider, and I thought that was really cool. I liked his 2 episodes that he was in. 4 episodes that he was in? Maybe 4. I don't know. I thought he had a story. Giori is S tier. Giori is like weirdly the GOAT. I can't put him in S tier. I'll put him in A tier. Giori is like weirdly the GOAT who was like such a good villain going in. And then he had like this dope scene in the movie where he just all of a sudden was this like super dope hero, and the next episode canonically he's like the worst villain. I love him. I can't put him in S because I think there is someone above him on that side of things, but I'm gonna put him in A tier because I thought he was a really good antagonist. Love that they used him to come back at the end to be like, this isn't what the DGP is supposed to be. Like, Giori came back and realized not only the error of his ways, but the fact that the DGP had gone so far into what he was doing when he got punished for it, for being wrong, that he's like, well, this is obviously wrong. She's a runner, she's a track star. I liked her. She's B tier. She's a B tier. I liked her. I like her story with Nago, how they're like sisters. She has the dopest helmet in the show, I'll be honest. And she also looks good in Boost. I don't know. Definitely deserved more time. In fact, you know who didn't deserve more time? Daichi! Notch Sparrow! C tier. He's there to be the villain of like the worst part of the show, which sucks. Cause like, it's not terrible, but he is the villain of the worst part of the show. And it just hurts him. I don't like his redemption. I don't like his ending that he gets to be like the new Archimedidel of like the Sunflower Jamato, when it's like the Jamato should be gone, please. Like, why are they still here? Niram. When I was talking about Giori being the GOAT, Niram is the GOAT. He is who I wanted to be the ultimate final villain of the show. I don't know if you guys get when Giori is going off and Niram just shows up and he's like, yeah, you did fucking bad. Snaps his fingers, dusts Giori. That was such a turning point of like, oh, there is someone worse than him. There is someone way worse than him that's going to be a gigantic thorn in like our main rider's sides. The fight with Buffa, where he doesn't even touch him, is one of the coolest fights in the whole show. So far up there, you're like, how are we gonna touch this guy? Samas shot Niram and then did nothing. C tier. She was there kind of, and then she like did nothing. She gets C tier. She could have done more. She's not F tier because like I know who she is. And she like directly affected the plot so much. Whereas like you guys had to tell me this is Letter and I think you're making up that name. Second Game Master, the dude that twerks. He annoyed the shit out of me, but I think he's B tier. I think he like played his role perfectly because he annoyed the shit out of me so much and then was such a bitch once he got the Vision Driver stolen. But I thought he was good. I thought he was cool. And like such a cool contrast to Giori that I was like, I love this shift in it of like, all right, now it needs to be this. Now it's all about the audience. Whereas before it was all about like whoever getting their wish, that type of thing. Zin! Zin is a B tier. His story got very interesting when he almost died. The people from the future thought their life was planned start to finish, and they thought that it like they knew exactly when they were gonna die. And then Zin almost died, and it like shook him to his core. But then he comes back again later and is just Zin again. He's also the only one of the sponsor riders that gets like a physical suit in that form, which I really like. Because I dig that suit. I'm gonna put him in B tier, and now let's move him up to A tier. I'll move him up to A tier because I really like him as a rider. Keiwa, Sakurai Keiwa. It's not even debatable. Not like the Bujin Sword arc. All you want. It makes sense. There are parts in it where they like should have gone a little farther with the dialogue, like how Buffa says to the people in the DGP lobby, like he's probably too far in. They should have played with that with Keiwa instead of being like bad guy. But far and away from start to finish, Sakurai Keiwa, the GOAT. Absolute S tier. Kekura, the foil to Keiwa. Look at everyone's like matchups is S tier, A tier, S tier, A tier, S tier, A tier. This show did it so well. Kekura is only A tier and not S tier because like he stayed in the frog form for weirdly a long time for no reason. But he also like had this really undying, like, this is what a Kamen Rider is. It's suffering. You need to suffer. But he also didn't come out on the other side of like the suffering makes them better until he's like dying. But the whole time he's like just a dick and doesn't give off any inclination that he's doing this to better Keiwa. When he turns on Keiwa, he 100% is like, you fucking failed me. And then when he's dying, he's like, you are the true Kamen Rider. And it's like, Kyun, C tier, probably above all these people, honestly, but Kyun is C tier. And the fact that Kyun has one good scene, maybe two. He has one scene that I can remember that is being better than okay. And that's obviously the scene where he like runs up and reminds Nago who she is. The worst supporter, good boyfriend, fine, but like the worst of the four supporters. Baroba, the best supporter in terms of story and everything. I'm dropping her in A tier. Baroba is a really good villain when she's being a villain to everyone. When she's just being a villain to Buffa, it like devolves into the, oh, I just want to see people suffer. I just want suffering, and like, and you gotta suffer, and you gotta suffer, and suffering is here. But when she's a villain to everyone, then it feels like this is like a plan happening. This is like something going off. This is just a fucking menace. And she gets kind of like a little more purpose when that happens. Archimenadel, whatever you want to name him. B tier. I thought it was really dope when he fed himself to the Jamato. It was cool. And he does like the little random things. And like that will always be in my mind. So he's solid B tier. I don't think he's like amazing, but I think he's like fine. I definitely like him better than Daichi. Toru, the friend? The less said about that, the better. Ben and John, C tiers. C tiers. You know what would have pushed them up to B tiers? Toei giving them a suit. Toei not going mask off. And we're like, these two international people, these two foreign people, they don't get to be full riders. Right now, C tier. They're bodyguards. They're fine. They don't do anything like super amazing. They're like looking through and they find their ID cores. I thought that part was really cool. But other than that, they're not F tier. That's the best I can say for it. They probably wanted to save money. You can't say that when it happened in the middle of the season and you got the rest of the season. Repaint some dumb, like, okay, next person, Groovy. Groovy came after Ben and John were revealed to be riders. Groovy got a suit. Groovy is F tier. No fucking reason for him to be there at all. Sarah, also C tier, but I like a high C tier. She's fine. She's fun. She's nice. She's like, if Kay was like our window to the DGP in this world, Sarah is the person like standing 10 feet behind the window being like, Look at that. Look at the moon. Look at that tree out there. She's like never really feels connected enough to the story. I think she's a nice support. She didn't need to be a writer at all, which I think probably pushes it down to C for me. But I like Sarah. I like her being there for KY. I like her sharing those experiences. And I like the first arc of him like hiding stuff from her a lot. I think that was really cool. This guy did some stuff. F. This guy did some stuff. F. Papa Karama, A tier. And this is not saying that I like him as a character or I like what he's doing throughout the season. But as a character throughout the season, you cannot tell me that Neon's dad didn't just fucking steal every single scene he was in. Had a super interesting arc throughout the show. Crazy cool what he goes through. And like you thought he was just gonna be that evil the whole time because every time they gave him an out, he just upped being more evil, upped being more evil, upped being more evil. And then at the very end, flipped sides and was like, I was wrong, which I love. I love that they're not like, I was doing this for these reasons. He goes, I was wrong. I love that first story. Kurama Neon herself. Probably my favorite character in Geats. I'm gonna be honest. My favorite character in Geats. Her story is so different and off the rails for any female rider, for any female we've gotten in Rider. And I think it's so cool. She has story moments that are like really down there for me, but she also has story, like her highs in her story far outweigh them. I think the reveal that like, hey, she was made by the goddess of creation. She's not a real person. I think that's such a cool, different way to go. And it makes her story a lot more meaningful. When she's like, oh, I don't have to stay home because like these aren't my parents, because I don't actually belong here and I have to go figure out where I belong. Good. Neon's mom. A lot of people won't agree with me, and that is okay. I'm going to give you my reasons right now. I know why a lot of you hate Neon's mom, but I will say bad things happen in fiction, just as bad things happen in real life. That doesn't make them bad characters. And the fact that later on we realize that Neon's mom did not know about the wish, and probably, from everything we know, had some sort of leftover subconscious feeling smothering her daughter because her past daughter died, I think is such a crazy nuanced thing for Kamen Rider to do. And in the end, when she realizes it, and she once again, just like the father, says she is wrong and tells Neon that like the loving times that we spent were not fake. Very, very heavy. I think that whole character development that she goes through is very heavy. She knows her daughter died. She knows there's something missing there. So she squeezes what she has so hard that Jit shows up and like, I'm like fully behind Jit when he shows up. I'm like, let's do this. This Game Master fucking rules. And then he just falls so far to the point where they're like at the second to last episode, they're like, oh yeah, he was nothing, which bums me out so bad because he's so good. He goes in C tier. It's such a bummer. Everything was like going well for him. And if he ended up being the final villain, I would have been fine with it. Or if he would have just been Sewell the whole time, I would have been fine with it. But the fact that they split those characters, Jit got the shit end of the stick. Goddess of Destruction, Sumori? F tier. It's just Azu for Sumori so that they can grant a few wishes, so that we can go through this checklist of battles that we need to have before the finale of like Baroba, Kekara. You could have done that you could have kept Sumori as the goddess and then flipped her back and then been like, oh, but we already wished for these things. Sewell! I don't want to put him in F tier because I think in the end, he was the right choice for the final boss. I wish he would have came back earlier. And he has like the cool Geats 9 debut. He has the history with the goddess of creation and everything. I just wish I wish this was one character. If this was one character, then they shoot up to A tier probably. But the fact that they're not and they split them apart so terribly, then they just both get C tier. Seeker, this movie's fine. This movie's fine. He's also C tier. Buffa. Let's go with Buffa goes A tier. It's this thing where like, he's just an idiot for too long. Like this guy comes back and is like, hey, I'm a plant person. And Buffa for way too long is like, hey, you're my best friend. And it's really dumb. 6 episodes later, they're like, he's like, I was just using you this whole time. Like Buffa switches, or at least says he switches goals way too much. Punk Jack, B tier, is so wasted by the end of the series. Punk Jack's most important thing that happens when he comes back is that he gives them exposition, Ace, Kawa, and Buffa, to tell them it's not Ace's mom's fault. She was in prison. She's doing this against her will. And Kawa still doesn't accept it. That is why he came back. He had the coolest death. The coolest death in the whole show was like part of the best episode of the whole show. And they threw it away just to bring him back to do some exposition. Sumori! There's no argument there. Sumori is what Izu should have been. Sumori is better than Izu. For all intents and purposes, we don't really know that Sumori is not an AI thing. Like they kind of alluded to a navigator being created as like this not real person. But throughout the show, she goes through such a good arc. Like one of the best Kamen Rider girls. I love that she didn't become a rider. Because they could have very easily done that. Her ending of shooting and killing Ace and then feeling so responsible that she looked over that site for the rest of her life, amazing. If things turned a little different, she would have been stoned, and now she's like forever looking over this stone. Shiro, I like to call him Shiro Way. Sick first death, but like ultimately a nothing character, in C tier. Sorry, you guys can't see it because he's behind, but he's in C tier. This guy, I forgot his rider name, but a higher C tier because I like his like relation to Kawa. Japan, everyone's favorite school shooter. The GOAT, baby. The fucking GOAT of the series. They showed up, shoot shit, insult people, leave. Japan B tier. Japan B tier. He was a really cool villain. I wish he would stayed around a little longer, especially when there were so many chances for him to come back, like the Buffa wanting to stop every rider, like Kawa's wish. He could have came back as a rider way earlier. Just so many chances for Japan to come back that he should have, but he's a solid B tier. He's a really good small villain, mini boss for our tricky trio to go through. But that's the list, baby. Godhawk, you're making me remember how good Geats was. All right, so I've got this question a lot of like where Geats ranks for me now. And after it's done, I can like fully say they stuck the landing. They did so well with it. Geats for me is a top 5 rider series. Build, Geats, Gaim, Drive, and O's. Finale of Geats was so good that it launched itself into my second favorite show.